The rain came down so hard that night it blurred the city into streaks of silver and black, and I almost didn't see her stumbling barefoot across the parking lot toward my car. One heel was missing. Her mascara had run down her cheeks like tears she was too exhausted to wipe away. She slammed both hands onto my hood and laughed the kind of laugh people make right before they completely fall apart. For one terrifying second, I thought she was going to collapse right there in the storm. I hadn't seen Emma in almost 3 years. Not since college. Not since the day she disappeared from everyone's lives without explanation. And now, at 2 in the morning, outside a downtown bar soaked in neon light and rainwater, she looked at me with unfocused eyes and whispered my name like she wasn't sure I was real. Before we go further into this story, if you believe kindness, second chances, and small acts of compassion can change someone's life forever, please take a moment to like this video, comment below where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that truly need them. I should have driven away. That's what a smarter man would have done. Emma had once been the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. In college, people followed her laughter the way sailors followed lighthouse beams in the dark. She was fearless, loud, impulsive, and somehow impossible to dislike. Even professors softened around her. She had a way of making people feel seen, like they mattered. Back then, I loved her quietly. Not dramatically. Not obsessively. Just the slow, painful kind of love that grows from years of friendship and never finds the courage to become anything more, but Emma never looked at me that way. She dated musicians, athletes, reckless men with motorcycles and broken smiles. Men who made promises they couldn't keep. Meanwhile, I was the dependable one. The guy who stayed sober enough to drive everyone home. The guy people trusted. The safe choice nobody ever chose. Then one day, during our final year, Emma vanished. Her phone disconnected. Her apartment emptied. No goodbye. No explanation. Rumors spread for months. Some said she dropped out because of drugs. Others said she got pregnant. A few claimed she'd moved across the country with some older guy. Eventually, everyone stopped talking about her. But every now and then, usually late at night, I'd still wonder what happened. And now here she was again. Drunk. Shaking. Broken in ways I couldn't yet understand. Her friend shoved her gently toward my car window and sighed heavily. The girl looked exhausted, embarrassed, angry, and worried all at once. She leaned down and explained that Emma had been cut off by the bartender hours ago but refused to call anyone except me. Apparently my number was still buried in her contacts. That hit harder than it should have. Out of everyone in her life, after all these years, somehow she still remembered me. Emma mumbled apologies while fumbling with the passenger door handle. I could smell alcohol before she even sat down. Rainwater dripped from her hair onto the seat as she curled against the window and closed her eyes. "Please just get me home," she whispered. The drive across town felt endless. The storm hammered the windshield while old memories hammered inside my chest. Every red light forced me to glance at her. She looked thinner than I remembered. Pale. Exhausted. Tiny scars marked her arms. There were shadows beneath her eyes that no amount of makeup could hide. At one point she started crying quietly. Not loud sobbing, just silent tears slipping down her face while she stared into darkness. I wanted to ask what happened to her. I wanted to ask where she'd been all these years. But something told me the answers would hurt. So I just drove. The address she gave me led to a small house on the edge of the city. It sat alone beneath flickering streetlights, worn down by time and weather. Paint peeled from the porch rails. Wind chimes rattled violently in the storm. The moment we pulled into the driveway, the porch light turned on. A woman stepped outside holding a blanket around her shoulders. Emma's mother. I recognized her instantly even though age and grief had transformed her face. She looked older than she should have. Tired in a permanent way. The second she saw Emma stumbling out of the car, her expression collapsed into heartbreak. She rushed forward and wrapped her daughter in trembling arms while Emma buried her face into her mother's shoulder like a child. And then her mother looked at me. Not casually. Not politely. She looked at me the way drowning people look at shore. And she quietly asked, "Would you like to stay?" There was something in her voice that stopped me cold. Fear. Desperation. Hope. I should have said no. But I didn't. Inside, the house smelled like coffee, medicine, and old memories. Family photos lined the walls, but the most recent ones of Emma were years old. College graduation pictures. Birthday parties. Smiling moments frozen before life apparently tore through all of them. Emma's mother guided her upstairs while I stood awkwardly in the kitchen, dripping rainwater onto the floor. A few minutes later she returned alone. "Thank you for bringing her home," she said softly. I told her it was nothing. But she shook her head immediately. "No," she whispered. "It wasn't nothing." Then she sat across from me at the table and said words that changed everything. "She's been trying to kill herself slowly for 3 years. The room went silent except for rain tapping against the windows. At first I thought I'd misunderstood. But then she told me everything. After disappearing from college, Emma had moved in with an older boyfriend who isolated her from everyone. He controlled her money, her phone, her friendships, even what she wore. Eventually emotional abuse became physical abuse. By the time she escaped, she barely recognized herself anymore. But the worst part came after. Because leaving didn't save her. It only left her shattered. She developed severe depression, anxiety, panic attacks, drinking problems. She stopped trusting people. Stopped believing she deserved love or happiness or even basic kindness. "She pushes everyone away," her mother said quietly. "Everyone except you." That stunned me. Apparently during her worst nights, when alcohol loosened her walls, Emma talked about college. About old memories. About me. Not romantically. Not dramatically. Just safely. She said I was the only person who had ever made her feel safe without wanting something from her. I didn't know what to do with that information. Because part of me still loved her. And another part knew loving someone broken can destroy you too. Upstairs, a loud crash suddenly echoed through the house. Her mother closed her eyes. "She's having another episode." Without thinking, I followed her upstairs. Emma sat on the bathroom floor shaking violently, surrounded by broken glass from a fallen mirror. She looked terrified, like she couldn't breathe properly. Her entire body trembled while tears streamed down her face. And then I heard it. Over and over. "I ruin everything. I ruin everything. I ruin everything." I knelt carefully a few feet away. She looked at me with unbearable shame. And for the first time in years, I saw the old Emma buried beneath all the pain. Not the party girl. Not the broken alcoholic. Just a scared human being begging silently for someone not to give up on her. So I stayed. That night became the first of many. At first, I told myself I was only helping temporarily. A few days maybe. A week at most. But pain has a way of making time irrelevant. Days blurred together, Emma slept through mornings and wandered the house at night like a ghost. Some days she barely spoke. Other days she talked endlessly, as if silence terrified her. She apologized constantly for existing. For needing help. For crying. For breathing too loudly. I learned quickly that trauma changes people in invisible ways. A slammed door could trigger panic. Certain songs made her dissociate completely. Unexpected touches made her flinch. Sometimes she stared at herself in mirrors with such hatred it physically hurt to witness. And beneath all of it was this crushing belief that she was beyond saving. One afternoon I found her sitting alone in the backyard during heavy rain, fully soaked, staring blankly at nothing. She admitted she liked the rain because it matched how she felt inside. That sentence stayed with me for weeks. Little by little, I started understanding something important. Healing isn't dramatic. Movies lie about that. Real healing is painfully slow and often invisible. It's sitting beside someone during silence. It's making coffee when they can't get out of bed. It's answering late-night phone calls when they're afraid of their own thoughts. It's staying. Even when staying hurts. Especially when staying hurts. But loving someone drowning in darkness comes with consequences. I stopped sleeping properly. I missed work deadlines. Friends told me I was becoming emotionally consumed by someone who might never recover. And maybe they were right. Because somewhere along the way, helping Emma stopped feeling like kindness and started feeling necessary for my own survival too. Then came the night everything nearly ended. I woke around 3 in the morning to the sound of the front door opening. Emma was leaving. Barefoot again. Shaking. Completely sober this time. I followed her outside into freezing wind and found her standing in the middle of the empty street staring upward at nothing. She looked peaceful in a terrifying way. That scared me more than panic ever could. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded exhausted beyond words. She would be happier if I disappeared. I knew she meant her mother. I stepped closer.